Today, I want to talk to you about storytelling and this amazing, amazing master storyteller that lives right in our minds. So, we all have an incredible script writer in our mind. And this incredibly talented storyteller has been weaving stories for years and years and years. So, it's also very experienced. Now, how many times have you had an altercation with somebody or had an interaction that kind of annoyed or irritated you, and you came home and you made up all these stories about them based on your interaction? And then maybe a few days later, you found out that they were dealing with something very difficult in their lives, and that's why they were off their usual game. Has that ever happened to you? It's happened to me many times where I will come home and I will say, oh my God, this person was so rude or didn't acknowledge me at all or didn't do anything. And then I would find out that they were going through something difficult. And now not only am I feeling terrible about the stories I made up, but I'm also regretful about the thoughts I had about them, right? And I feel a sense of remorse. Why did I make up those stories? It is a safety mechanism, right? We want to feel safe and we want to feel seen, heard, and understood at all times. So now, if somebody is acting out of character, if we encounter a difficult situation, it is easier for us to deal with that if we have a story that justifies it, right? Think about it. I mean, so many times we go through life and we have experiences like, I have a teenager and I know a lot of teenage moms are tracking their kids on their phone. Let's say you are tracking your child on your phone and you find that suddenly their location has been disabled. You could make up a bazillion stories of how their life is in danger, how they are at a party and things have gone wrong, how they got into a car accident, how they have gotten into the wrong company and done something crazy. All kinds of crazy thoughts can run through your mind within seconds. But are any of them true? You don't know that. We don't know that, and yet we make these stories, and based on these stories, we start to live in worry, fear, doubt, and insecurity. Isn't that crazy? Think about a time where someone cut you off in traffic, right? And maybe you looked at their face and they had this expression on their face that got you rethinking, were you in the wrong? Were they in the wrong? What was going on? Why did they have that look on their face? Now you're making up a whole range of stories about this person, right? I mean, think about at work. Your boss sends you an email or calls you and says something abrupt and hangs up before you have a chance to explain anything. You're making up stories about this person, right? You're like, oh my God, he knows that I'm not done with my work. He knows that my deadline is coming close and I haven't finished. We assume and we assume and we assume and we make stories in our minds that are not true. And as a result of this assumption, we are driving ourselves crazy in this downward spiral of worry, doubt, fear, and insecurity. When instead, if we're gonna make stories, if we're gonna assume, why aren't we assuming happy, positive, optimistic, beautiful stories, right? If I can't find my kid on the app locator thing, why can't I assume that he's taking a nap? Why can't I assume that his phone is in a dead zone? Why can I not assume that he's having so much fun with his friends that he didn't realize that his phone died? We could assume all of that and we would be fine, but we want to assume the worst because we are trained to live in fear. But I want to invite you today to live fearlessly, to live in faith, to live in a place of trust and surrender, and know that life is working out for you, not against you. It's not happening to you, it is happening for you. Every experience that you have is coming to you with a custom planned, personalized lesson. And instead of making up horror stories, like the genre is always horror, right? Have you noticed that? It is always horror, or it is mystery, or it is like dreadful, scary, awful craziness. So let's change the genre to comedy, maybe. Let's change the genre to Hallmark movies, right? Let's change it to love stories. Let's change it to, uplifting, empowering, inspiring stories. We get to write those stories. We have the power to control the narrative in our mind. So let's try it and let's assume the best. If you're gonna assume the best. This has been a motto of mine for a long time, and I have shared it with many, many clients. So today I want to share it with you. If you're gonna assume the best, and then see how your thinking feeds your experiences. So I want to invite you to do that today and challenge the storyteller in your head and fire the horror scriptwriter. Just fire the heck out of that version of the storyteller, because they don't belong in our minds. And we give them rent-free space to stay there and create story after story after story. And each story only brings us down and only scares us more and only has us living in worry. Let's go from fearful to fearless by changing the stories that we tell ourselves, by changing the narrative in your mindset. Try it out for the next 2 weeks and let me know in the comments how that worked out for you. All right? Go make some funny stories. Have some silly ideas that go out there and input those into your mind and see what happens. Thank you.